This show is my hope. The poor girl sang to save her mother, and what the millionaire judged. If this story interests you, subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Let's begin! On a bustling corner in Austin, where the afternoon sun beat down on the old cobblestones, a 7-year-old girl climbed onto a worn wooden crate. Her curly hair fluttered in the breeze, while her brown eyes shone with the determination of someone who already knew the weight of the world. Sophia Adams adjusted a guitar almost bigger than herself, its worn strings betraying years of use and silent stories. The little girl didn't sing for vanity or applause. She sang because when her notes filled the air, the universe seemed less frightening and more welcoming. There, in front of the Barton Springs Bakery, in the heart of the South Congress neighborhood, Sophia believed that her voice could somehow change the course of fate. Hurrying pedestrians would sometimes stop, enchanted by the purity of the child's voice as she sang songs by Joni Mitchell and Carole King. Some left coins in an old hat placed strategically in front of the crate. Others just smiled and went on their way. Sophia thanked them all with a shy nod, without interrupting her singing. At the end of the afternoon, with the sky tinged orange and purple, Sophia carefully tucked every penny into a small cloth purse embroidered with her name. With the guitar on her back and her school backpack slung over her shoulder, she walked the familiar streets to the Meadowbrook Apartments, where she lived with her mother, Rebecca. "Mom, I'm home," she announced as she entered the small, impeccably tidy apartment. Rebecca Adams was sitting on the sofa, flipping through an old magazine. Her eyes, the same shade of brown as her daughter's, revealed a weariness that went beyond the physical. At 38, she bore the marks of a silent battle against an aggressive tumor that had forced her to retire from the profession she loved. A dedicated nurse at Austin General Hospital, she now spent her days between appointments, medications, and constant worry about her daughter's future. "How was today, my love?" she asked, her smile lighting up her face despite its pallor. "It was good, Mom. Mrs. Henderson from the bakery gave me a warm bagel at the end. And look." Sophia opened her purse, pouring the coins onto the coffee table. "I made more today than yesterday." Rebecca looked at the coins with a mixture of pride and sadness. She had never imagined her daughter would have to work so young. It wasn't what she had dreamed for her. She wanted Sophia to have time to be a child, to play, to live without worries. But life had changed their plans. "I'm going to put it in the jar, okay?" Sophia didn't wait for an answer and ran to the kitchen, where a glass jar hidden in the back of a cupboard held her savings. The girl counted each coin with precision, noting the amount in a colorful little notebook. "Another $15.50 for our fund, Mom." The fund, as Sophia called it, was the money they were trying to save for treatments that the state insurance didn't cover. The waiting list for tests was too long, and Rebecca knew she couldn't wait. Every day counted. The pain medication was expensive, and the savings she had managed to put away over years of work were quickly dwindling. "You're my guardian angel, you know that?" Rebecca pulled her daughter into a hug, feeling her chest tighten with a mix of love and guilt. "But tomorrow, you're going straight to Aunt Susan's after school, all right? You need to do your homework and rest." Sophia pouted but didn't protest. She knew her mother was worried, and that Aunt Susan, their upstairs neighbor and Rebecca's best friend since adolescence, always treated her with kindness. "Okay, but can I bring my guitar? I'm practicing a new song." Rebecca nodded, trying to hide a sudden wave of dizziness. "Of course you can. Now go take a shower while I make our dinner." As Sophia ran to the bathroom, Rebecca allowed herself a moment of weakness. She leaned against the kitchen wall and took a deep breath, feeling the familiar pain course through her body. The doctors had been clear about the prognosis, but she refused to accept it. There had to be a solution. For Sophia, she had to find the strength to keep fighting. The following Sunday, as had been their tradition for almost a year, Sophia and Rebecca visited Mrs. Josephine, a 78-year-old woman who lived in the same apartment complex. A widow for over a decade, Mrs. Josephine found comfort from the loneliness of her long days in the company of little Sophia and Rebecca. "Child, your singing gets better every day," exclaimed Mrs. Josephine after Sophia performed her new song, sitting on the porch filled with plants. "You have your mother's gift." She sang like an angel in the church choir when she was young. Rebecca smiled at the memory. "That was so long ago I barely remember." "Nonsense. You don't forget things like that. It's in your blood, passed down to the girl. The elderly woman served chamomile tea in porcelain cups, relics from a more prosperous time. How you should show this talent to more people, Sophia. It was then that Mrs. Josephine, rummaging through a pile of old magazines and newspapers she kept, found a colorful flyer. Look what I found last week. It was inside a magazine at Dr. Miller's office. Sophia took the paper curiously. It was an ad for American Starfinder, a nationally televised music competition that aired on Sunday nights. The flyer announced auditions in several cities across the country, including Austin, in 3 weeks. The prize, $1 million and a contract with a major record label. The girl's eyes lit up as she read the highlighted sentence on the flyer. Transform your story through music. Show your gift to the whole country. Mom, look at this. Can we go, please? Sophia grabbed Rebecca's arm, her eyes pleading. Rebecca examined the flyer with apprehension. She knew the show, of course. It was one of the most popular reality music shows in the country. But the idea of exposing Sophia to that competitive environment, the cameras, the pressure, she wasn't sure if it was right for a 7-year-old. Sophia, this kind of show, I don't know if it's a good idea. There are so many people, so much pressure, and you're still so little. But Mom, look at the prize. $1 million. The girl pointed to the amount printed in bold letters. With that money, you could get that treatment the doctor talked about, the one the state insurance doesn't cover. Her daughter's words hit Rebecca like a punch to the gut. So Sophia knew. Of course she knew. The girl was too observant, too intelligent not to realize the seriousness of the situation. She had probably overheard conversations, seen documents, or simply felt the weight of worry that hung over their home. You don't need to worry about that, honey. Everything's going to be all right. Rebecca tried to sound convincing, but her voice wavered. Mrs. Josephine, who had been watching the scene with keen eyes, intervened. Rebecca, why not let the girl try? What do you have to lose? If it doesn't work out, so be it. But what if it does? Have you thought about that? Over the next week, Sophia didn't mention the subject again, but Rebecca noticed her daughter practicing more diligently, perfecting every note, every word. At night, when she thought her mother was asleep, the girl would study the flyer Mrs. Josephine had given her, memorizing every detail, imagining herself on that stage. On a rainy Thursday, Rebecca felt ill in the afternoon and had to be rushed to the hospital. Susan took care of Sophia, who remained silent and scared throughout the night. When Rebecca returned the next morning, paler and weaker, she found her daughter asleep on the sofa, clutching her guitar. That image broke something inside her. Sophia deserved more than worries and responsibilities beyond her years. She deserved a chance to dream, to believe that the world could be generous. And if that show represented that chance, who was she to deny it? Sophia, she called softly, stroking her daughter's hair. Let's sign you up for that show. What do you think? The girl's shriek of joy was answer enough. The auditions were to be held at the Austin Convention Center, an imposing building downtown. The night before the big day, Sophia was so nervous she could barely eat dinner. She spent hours choosing what to wear, finally settling on a simple but pretty blue dress, a birthday gift from Susan. What song are you going to sing tomorrow? Rebecca asked as she braided her daughter's hair before bed. What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong, Sophia answered seriously. The one you always sang to me when I was little, remember? Rebecca smiled, moved. Of course she remembered. It was a song about hope, about finding beauty even in the most difficult moments. It was perfect. I'm going to sing it for you, Mom, to give you strength. The morning of the audition began with a mishap. While making a final adjustment to the guitar strings, the instrument, already old and worn, couldn't take it. The wood of the neck cracked, rendering it unplayable. Sophia looked at the broken guitar, then at her mother, her eyes welling up. It was the guitar that had belonged to her father, Mark, who had left when she was only 2. It wasn't just sentimental, it was her only instrument. What are we going to do now, Mom? Her voice was a thread of despair. Rebecca took a deep breath, trying to contain her own disappointment. They didn't have the money to buy another guitar, and there was no time to borrow one. You'll sing without the guitar, Sophia. A cappella. Your voice is beautiful on its own. You'll charm everyone, I'm sure of it. The line for the auditions stretched for blocks. Hundreds of people of all ages awaited their chance. Some with expensive instruments, others in elaborate outfits. Sophia held her mother's hand tightly, feeling small and insignificant in the face of so much talent. When it was finally her turn, after nearly 5 hours of waiting, Sophia entered a room where 3 judges awaited her. She recognized them immediately from television. Carmen Shaw, a famous singer known for her powerful voice, Richard Montgomery, a respected music producer, and Gregory Nash, a businessman and controversial figure in the arts world, known as much for his keen eye for talent as for his difficult temperament. "Hello, dear." "What's your name?" Carmen asked with a gentle smile. "Sophia Adams," the girl replied, her voice steadier than she expected. "And how old are you, Sophia?" Carmen continued. 7 years and 9 months. Richard raised his eyebrows in surprise. "You're very young. And what will you be singing for us today?" Sophia explained about the broken guitar, the song she had chosen, and why she was there. She spoke with a disarming sincerity, without drama or artifice, just the raw truth of a child facing life's hardships, with the only weapon she possessed, her voice. Gregory, who until then had seemed bored, flipping through papers without paying much attention, looked up. There was something about this girl, something familiar and unsettling. It wasn't just another sad story to move the judges. There was a rare authenticity in her eyes, in her posture, in the way she held her hands to hide her nervousness. "You can start whenever you're ready," he said, surprising himself with his almost gentle tone. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, took a deep breath and began to sing. Her voice, crystal clear and surprisingly mature, filled the room with the opening lines of the classic song. Without the support of the guitar, every note, every word was exposed bare, without disguise. There was no room for mistakes or hesitation. "I see trees of green. Red roses, too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world." The room fell into a respectful silence. The production assistants, normally indifferent after hours of auditions, stopped what they were doing to listen. Carmen brought a hand to her heart, visibly moved. Richard nodded in approval, impressed by the vocal control of someone so young. Gregory, however, was motionless. Something in that girl's voice transported him to another place, another time. It was like hearing a distant echo of something he knew but couldn't place. He felt a discomfort grow in his chest, an unease he couldn't name. When Sophia finished singing, there was a moment of absolute silence, as if no one wanted to break the spell. Then Carmen applauded, followed by Richard and the production crew. Gregory joined in the applause, trying to push away the strange feeling that overwhelmed him. "Sophia, you have a special gift," Carmen said, with tears in her eyes. "A voice like that, so pure and expressive, is rare even in adults." "I agree," added Richard. "Your technique still needs development, of course, but the natural talent is undeniable. And the interpretation. You really feel every word you sing, don't you?" Sophia nodded, her cheeks flushed with emotion. "This song makes me think of my mom. She's very strong, you know. Even when she's sick, she always finds a way to smile." Gregory leaned forward, trying to maintain the professional composure that characterized him. "You said your mother is sick? Can you tell us a little more about that?" The question might have seemed invasive, but there was a genuine curiosity in his voice. Sophia briefly explained Rebecca's condition, how she sang on the streets to help with treatment costs, and how the show represented a hope for them. "And your father?" The question slipped out before Gregory could stop it. "He left when I was little," Sophia replied, showing no resentment. "My mom says he needed to follow a different path, but he left his guitar for me. It was special. Until it broke today." A heavy silence fell over the room. Carmen shot a disapproving look at Gregory, who seemed uncomfortably affected by the answer. "Well, Sophia," Richard spoke up, "I think I speak for everyone when I say you deserve a chance. You're through to the next round." "Congratulations!" Sophia could hardly believe it. She left the room in a daze, running into the arms of her mother, who was waiting anxiously in the designated area for companions. "Mom, I made it. They liked me, even without the guitar." Rebecca hugged her daughter tightly, feeling a mix of pride and worry. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for a moment, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, a miracle was possible. Meanwhile, Inside the audition room, Gregory remained restless. Something about that girl's story, her appearance, the way she spoke, it all disturbed him in a way he couldn't explain. "What's wrong, Gregory?" Carmen asked, noticing his discomfort. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "It's nothing," he lied, running a hand through the graying hair at his temples. "Just tired. It's been a long day." But as they called in the next contestant, Gregory couldn't get the image of Sophia Adams out of his head. Her brown eyes, the shape of her face, the way she tilted her head while waiting for an answer. There was something terribly familiar in those gestures. And then, like a lightning bolt, the realization hit him. The girl looked like... No, it couldn't be. It was impossible. A coincidence, nothing more. He had left that life behind a long time ago. Had moved on. There was no way the past could come back to haunt him now after so many years, through the eyes of a 7-year-old child. Or was there? Sophia and Rebecca returned home exhausted but happy. Qualifying for the next round meant Sophia would participate in the tapings at the show's main studio in Los Angeles in 2 weeks. "How are we going to get to Los Angeles, Mom?" Sophia asked as she got ready for bed. "It's far, isn't it?" Rebecca nodded, trying to hide her concern. Los Angeles was a long flight from Austin, but in her current condition, any travel was a significant effort. Plus, there would be costs for transportation, possibly lodging, depending on the taping schedules. "We'll figure it out, my love. We always do, don't we?" She smiled, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Now sleep. Tomorrow we have to celebrate your victory with Mrs. Josephine and Aunt Susan." After Sophia fell asleep, Rebecca allowed herself to cry silently in the living room. She was happy for her daughter, proud of her talent and courage, but the fear of the future consumed her. Her body was getting weaker every day, and the doctors had been clear about the need to start a more aggressive treatment as soon as possible. A treatment that public health services wouldn't fully cover, and which would cost more than all the savings they had. The next morning, the news of Sophia's success spread through the apartment complex. Mrs. Josephine organized a small celebratory lunch in her apartment, complete with cornbread muffins and orange juice. Susan showed up with a gift, a small teddy bear dressed as a singer, with a tiny microphone attached to its paw. "For good luck," she explained, as Sophia hugged the toy enthusiastically. The celebration, however, was cut short when Rebecca began to feel sharp pains and dizziness. She tried to hide it, but Susan, with her years of experience as a nursing assistant, noticed immediately that something was wrong. "I need to take you to the hospital," she whispered to her friend, while Sophia was distracted, showing her new bear to Mrs. Josephine. "I can't go now," Rebecca replied through gritted teeth, gripping her friend's arm tightly. "I don't want to ruin her day." "If you don't take care of yourself, you'll ruin a lot more than one day," Susan said firmly. "I'll look after Sophia. You're coming to the hospital with me now." Reluctantly, Rebecca agreed. She explained to Sophia that she needed to run some routine tests and would be back soon. The girl was visibly worried, but agreed to stay with Mrs. Josephine, who promised to teach her some crochet stitches to pass the time. At Austin General Hospital, where Rebecca had worked for years, the doctor who saw her was an old colleague, Dr. Paul Miller. After examining the results of her recent tests, his expression grew grave. "Rebecca, I'm not going to lie to you. We need to act quickly. The tumor is growing faster than we anticipated, and there are signs it might be spreading." Rebecca closed her eyes, trying to absorb the impact of his words. "What are my options, Paul?" "Be straight with me." The doctor sighed, uncomfortable with what he had to say. The ideal treatment would be to immediately start a new combined approach. Surgery followed by a specific protocol of drugs that are still in experimental phases in the US, but have shown promising results in Europe. And the state insurance covers the surgery, yes, but not the experimental treatment. And even for the surgery, you'd be on a waiting list that could take months. "Months I don't have," Rebecca completed, her voice strangely calm. Dr. Miller nodded sadly. "There's the private option, of course. I know a specialized clinic in Los Angeles that could perform the entire procedure, with access to the drugs through a research program." "And how much would all that cost?" When the doctor mentioned the figure, Rebecca almost laughed at how absurd it sounded. It was a sum she could never raise, not even if she sold everything she owned and worked for years. "I understand," was all she could say. Leaving the hospital, supported by Susan, Rebecca felt a renewed determination rise amidst the despair. If her time was truly limited, she would use every remaining minute to secure a future for Sophia. And at that moment, the only tangible hope was that television show, however unlikely it seemed. "We're going to make it happen," she said to Susan, who looked at her confused. "The show. We're going to make sure Sophia has the best possible chance." In the days that followed, Rebecca and Sophia dedicated themselves completely to preparing for the next round. Since they had no money to buy a new guitar, they decided Sophia would continue to sing a cappella. "Your voice is your greatest instrument," Rebecca would say as they practiced daily. The show's production team contacted them, informing them they would send a car to pick them up in Austin and take them to the studio in Los Angeles. The taping would last all day, with the possibility of extending into the next, depending on Sophia's performance. The night before the trip, while they packed a small bag with essentials, Sophia noticed her mother seemed paler and more tired than usual. "Are you okay, Mom?" she asked, worried. Rebecca smiled, trying to appear strong. "Just a little tired, my love. Nothing to worry about. Tomorrow is your big day. We need to be ready." That night, after Sophia fell asleep, Rebecca wrote a long, painful letter. In it, she explained everything she might not have time to say to her daughter in person, about the unconditional love she felt, the pride she had in the person Sophia was becoming, the dreams she held for her future. She also wrote about Mark, Sophia's father, in a way she never had before, with truth, without bitterness or filters. She placed the letter in a folder of important documents, along with Sophia's birth certificate and other essential papers. It was a precaution, a last resort to ensure that no matter what happened, her daughter would know how much she was loved. The next morning, a discreet black van arrived at the apartment complex. The driver, a middle-aged man with a show ID badge, helped them with their small bag and drove them to the airport for their flight to Los Angeles. The studio was much larger and more impressive than Sophia had imagined. Dozens of people hurried around, carrying equipment, adjusting lights, giving orders. The girl held her mother's hand tighter, suddenly intimidated. A young, energetic production assistant came to greet them. "You must be Sophia Adams. We've been waiting for you. I'm Patricia. I'll be taking care of you today." Sophia was led to a dressing room where other child contestants were already waiting. There were 8 in total, all visibly nervous, some accompanied by anxious parents whispering last-minute instructions and encouragement. "Mommy, are you going to stay with me?" Sophia asked, reluctant to let go of Rebecca's hand. "I'll be right here, my love." "I'm not going anywhere," Rebecca assured her, adjusting the blue dress Sophia was wearing, the same one from the audition, washed and carefully ironed. The dynamic of this round would be different. The children would participate in a group rehearsal in the morning, then have individual sessions with one of the judges, who would act as a mentor, and finally give their performances, which would be taped and later edited for broadcast the following Sunday. The group rehearsal was led by a renowned vocal coach, who instructed the children on basic breathing and posture techniques. Sophia absorbed every word with full attention, determined to learn everything she could. "You don't need an instrument to stand out," the coach said, noticing how Sophia seemed self-conscious about being the only one without musical accompaniment. Sometimes the purest voice is the one that hides nothing. During the lunch break served in the studio cafeteria, Sophia noticed her mother barely touched her food. "Aren't you hungry, Mom?" Rebecca forced a smile. "I'm just anxious for you, sweetie. Eat up so you have energy for later." In truth, the pain had returned with intensity, and Rebecca was struggling to stay conscious. She couldn't fail Sophia now, not at this crucial moment. She discreetly took another pain pill, knowing she was exceeding the recommended dosage, but she had no other choice. In the afternoon, it was time for the individual sessions with the mentors. To her surprise, Sophia was assigned to work with Gregory Nash. He had been the most reserved during her audition, and his tough reputation preceded him. The girl entered the rehearsal room with her heart pounding, unsure of what to expect. Gregory was sitting at a piano, leafing through some sheet music. He looked up when Sophia entered, and for a moment he seemed taken aback. He quickly composed himself, indicating a place for her to sit. "So, Sophia, let's work on your performance for today. Still no guitar? She nodded, explaining again about the broken instrument. I see. Well, that might even be an advantage. Your voice is exceptional, and without accompaniment it truly shines, he paused, studying the girl's face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Do you look a lot like your mother? The question caught Sophia by surprise. Everyone says so, but I have my dad's eyes according to my mom. Gregory cleared his throat, clearly uneasy. Right, let's focus on the music. Are you singing the same song as before? No, Sophia replied, gaining confidence. I'm going to sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's about dreams, about painting the future with beautiful colors. A shadow of emotion crossed Gregory's face. For a moment it seemed he would say something personal, but then the professional took over again. Good choice. Let's work on it. For the next hour, Gregory coached Sophia with a patience and gentleness that surprised them both. He suggested small adjustments to her interpretation, pointed out moments where she could better explore her vocal range, and shared tips for controlling her nerves in front of the cameras. When you're out there, forget the cameras, forget the judges, forget the competition, he advised. Just think about the music, what it means to you. Sing as if you're singing only for one person you love very much. Sophia nodded, absorbing every word. I'll sing for my mom. Something in the simplicity of that statement touched Gregory deeply. I'm sure she'll be very proud. When the session ended, Gregory did something unexpected. He took a card from his pocket and handed it to Sophia. If you or your mother need anything, you can call me directly at this number. Anything at all. Sophia thanked him, a little confused, and carefully tucked the card into the pocket of her dress. The afternoon moved on with final preparations. Professional makeup artists applied a light blush to Sophia's cheeks and styled her hair into more defined curls. A stylist adjusted her dress, adding a light blue sash at the waist for a special touch. You look beautiful, Rebecca said, watching her daughter's transformation with teary eyes. She was sitting in a chair in the corner of the dressing room, visibly exhausted. Mom, you don't look well, Sophia approached, concerned. Do you want me to get someone? Rebecca shook her head. I'm fine, I just need to rest a bit. You need to focus on your performance now. The performance order was decided by a draw, and Sophia would be the 6th to perform. This meant a long wait watching the other children, some truly talented, with their enthusiastic families cheering from the sidelines. When it was finally her turn, Sophia looked for her mother and saw her, pale but smiling encouragingly, next to Patricia, the production assistant who seemed to be helping Rebecca stay on her feet. The stage was dark, with only a soft circle of light in the center. Sophia positioned herself there, took a deep breath as she had learned, and waited for the director's cue. When the light intensified, revealing her small frame on the immense stage, there was a moment of absolute silence, and then her voice filled the space clear and pure, singing about a world of colors and possibilities, about a future painted with imagination. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. The interpretation had a maturity that was disconcerting for someone so young. Sophia didn't just sing the words. She lived them, creating vivid images with her voice, transporting everyone to a universe of childlike hope and timeless wisdom. At the judges' table, Carmen had tears in her eyes. Richard nodded in approval, truly impressed. And Gregory was motionless, his expression a mix of admiration and something deeper, more unsettling. When Sophia finished singing, there was a moment of reverent silence, followed by an explosion of applause. The judges rose, offering a standing ovation they rarely gave, especially in the early rounds. Sophia, that was simply extraordinary, Carmen declared, discreetly wiping away a tear. You didn't just sing, you made us feel every word. I completely agree, added Richard. There are adult artists who spend decades trying to achieve that emotional connection with a song. You have a rare gift. Gregory seemed to struggle for words. When he finally spoke, his voice was hoarse with emotion. You reminded me why music matters, why it can change lives. Thank you for that, Sophia. The girl thanked them shyly, searching for her mother with her eyes. She found her still beside Patricia, trying to smile through the evident pain she was feeling. As she left the stage, Sophia ran to Rebecca, hugging her tightly. I did it, Mom. They liked it. I knew they would, Rebecca replied, her voice weak. You were. She couldn't finish the sentence. Her eyes rolled back and she collapsed into the arms of Patricia, who screamed for help. What followed was a confusing blur for Sophia. People running, alarmed voices, someone pulling her away as paramedics appeared with a stretcher. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion and fast forward at the same time, like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. "Mommy! Mommy!" she cried, trying to get to Rebecca, but being held back gently by one of the makeup artists. That's when she felt a firm hand on her shoulder. Gregory Nash was there, his usually impassive face now marked by genuine concern. "Sophia, your mother needs to go to the hospital right now. I'm going to make sure she gets the best possible care, understand? But you need to be strong." "I want to go with her," the girl sobbed. "And you will," he assured her. "My driver will take us right now." Within minutes, Sophia was in the back of a luxury car, following the ambulance carrying her mother. Gregory sat beside her, making frantic calls, giving orders, mobilizing resources Sophia didn't even understand. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, he instructed the driver. "They're already expecting us." Sophia looked at him, confused and scared. Cedars-Sinai was one of the most expensive and prestigious hospitals in Los Angeles. How would her mother be treated there? "Don't worry about anything," Gregory said, sensing her confusion. "I know people there. Your mother will receive all the necessary care." At the hospital reception, a team was already waiting. Rebecca was immediately taken for tests, while Sophia and Gregory were led to a private waiting room. "Why are you doing all this for us?" Sophia asked after a long silence, her eyes red from crying fixed on the businessman's face. "So you don't even know us?" Gregory seemed struck by the question. For a moment, he considered making up some story about the show's social responsibility or something equally impersonal. But there was something in this child's eyes. His eyes, he realized with a tightening in his chest, that demanded honesty. "Sophia, there are things that we might need to talk about later. When your mother is better." The girl frowned, intrigued, but before she could press, a doctor entered the room. She was a middle-aged woman with a serious and compassionate expression. "Mr. Nash, can we speak in private?" Gregory hesitated, looking at Sophia. "She's the patient's only child. I think she has the right to know what's happening, don't you agree, Doctor?" "In an age-appropriate way, of course." The doctor assessed Sophia for a moment, then nodded. "Your mother is stable now, dear, but she's very weak and will need to stay in the hospital for a few days. We're going to run some tests and decide on the best treatment for her. Is she going to be okay?" The question was simple, direct, filled with all the hope and fear a 7-year-old could muster. The doctor exchanged a look with Gregory before answering carefully. "We're going to do everything we can to help her get better. She's very strong, you know. She's already asking for you. Can I see her?" "In a little while, once she's settled in her room. A nurse will come get you." When the doctor left, Sophia was silent for several minutes, processing everything that was happening. Finally, she looked at Gregory with disconcerting maturity. "She's very sick, isn't she?" "The doctors in Austin said she needed a special treatment that cost a lot of money. That's why I entered the show, to try and win the prize." Gregory swallowed hard, surprised by the clarity and strength of this child. "Sophia, listen. Your mother is going to receive the best treatment available here. Don't worry about money or the show right now. But what if I don't win? How will we pay for all this? Don't think about that, please. Just focus on your mom right now. As for the rest," he hesitated, unsure how much he should say, "I'll take care of it. I promise." An hour later, Sophia was taken to the room where Rebecca was. Her mother looked smaller and more fragile in the white hospital sheets, surrounded by machines and monitors. But her eyes lit up when she saw her daughter. "My love," she whispered, extending a trembling hand. Sophia ran to hug her, careful not to dislodge any of the tubes and wires connected to her mother. "You scared me, Mommy. I'm sorry about that. I just got a little tired." "You need to rest now," a nurse gently interrupted. "And so does your daughter." "It's been a long day for both of you." "Where will Sophia stay?" Rebecca asked, suddenly worried. They were in a strange city, with no close family or friends. "I've already arranged accommodations," said Gregory, who was watching the scene from the doorway. "There's an apartment hotel next to the hospital, used by patients' families. Sophia will stay there, with a chaperone from the show's production, and she can visit you every day." Rebecca looked at the businessman with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. Why are you doing all this for us, Mr. Nash? Gregory held her gaze for a moment. There were unasked questions there, suspicions, perhaps, memories he didn't know if she still held. Because your daughter is special. And because it's the right thing to do. In the days that followed, a routine was established. Sophia spent her mornings with her mother at the hospital, and her afternoons rehearsing at the studio for the next round of the show. Patricia, the production assistant, had been assigned as her full-time chaperone and did her best to keep the girls' spirits up. The show's production decided not to publicize what had happened with Rebecca for the time being, respecting the family's privacy. To the public, Sophia Adams was just another talented contestant whose performance would be aired the following Sunday. On the fourth day, Rebecca was visited by Dr. Arthur Cavendish, one of the most renowned oncologists in the country. He calmly and clearly explained the available treatment options, including access to experimental drugs through a special program. But how will I pay for all this? Rebecca asked, aware that this kind of treatment would cost a fortune. That part has already been taken care of, the doctor replied. You've been included in a treatment program subsidized by the New Paths Foundation. Rebecca frowned, confused. I've never heard of that foundation. It's a new organization that supports patients with conditions similar to yours. The financial details aren't my specialty, but I can assure you that you don't need to worry about that now. Just focus on getting stronger. When the doctor left, Rebecca was thoughtful. She didn't believe in such generous coincidences. There was a connection she couldn't ignore, no matter how unlikely it seemed. That evening, after Sophia had been taken back to the apartment hotel to rest, Rebecca asked the nurse to call Gregory Nash if he was still at the hospital. To her surprise, the businessman appeared in less than 15 minutes. Do you ever leave? She asked with a faint smile. Gregory shrugged, looking almost shy, an expression that would surely surprise anyone who only knew his public persona. I've been working from the administrative office here. It makes it easier to keep up with everything. Rebecca took a deep breath, gathering her strength for the conversation she knew they needed to have. This New Paths Foundation. It's yours, isn't it? He didn't answer immediately, but his silence was confirmation enough. Why? She insisted. Why now after all this time? Gregory sat in the armchair next to the bed, rubbing his face with his hands in a gesture of exhaustion and defeat. I didn't know, Rebecca. I swear I didn't know about Sophia. How could you have known? You disappeared, changed your number. Your lawyer made it very clear you wanted no contact. I was a different person back then. His voice was low, heavy with regret. Young, ambitious, selfish. When you told me you were pregnant, I panicked. My career was just starting to take off. I was drowning in debt, risky contracts, betting everything on my future. And there was no room for a family in that future. That's what I thought at the time. The biggest mistake of my life. Gregory looked directly at Rebecca, his eyes reflecting years of regret. When I saw Sophia at that audition, something hit me. I didn't understand what it was right away. But there was something about her, something so familiar that it haunted me day and night. She has your eyes, Rebecca said softly. She always has. I realized it today looking at an old photo of us, and when I found out who she was. Who I was, his voice broke. I've never felt so much shame and fear in my life. Fear. That it was too late. That you both would hate me with every right. That I didn't even deserve to meet her. Rebecca observed the man before her, so different from the young music producer she had met almost 9 years ago at a university music festival where she was performing with an amateur group. Now there were lines around his eyes, grey strands at his temples, a weariness that spoke of success achieved at a high cost. Sophia doesn't know, she said finally. I never told her the truth about you. I just said her father had to follow a different path, that he left the guitar for her. The guitar? My God, that was my guitar, Gregory murmured, remembering the instrument he had left behind in the small apartment they had briefly shared. She said it broke. Yes, on the day of the audition. The silence that followed was heavy with memories, regrets, and unlived possibilities. Outside the hospital room, the city of Los Angeles pulsed, indifferent to the small tragedies and redemptions occurring within its walls. What do you want now, Gregory? Rebecca finally asked. After all these years, what do you expect? He shook his head. a gesture that blended uncertainty and determination. I don't know if I have the right to want anything, but I want to help. I want you to get well. I want to know my daughter, if you'll let me, and if I don't. The question hung between them, heavy and fair. Gregory took a deep breath before answering. Then I'll continue to make sure you both have everything you need, from a distance, without interfering. The decision is yours, Rebecca. It always was. She closed her eyes, physically and emotionally exhausted. I need time to think. Sophia is already going through so much. A national TV show, my illness, and now see this. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be close by. When Gregory left the room, Rebecca allowed the tears to come, not of sadness or anger, but of relief. For the first time in a long time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, Sophia had a real chance at a secure future, regardless of what happened to her. The following Sunday, the episode with Sophia's performance aired. The production had done an impeccable job, building an emotional narrative about the girl who sang on the streets to help her sick mother. The performance of Somewhere Over the Rainbow moved the nation, and within hours Sophia Adams became a national phenomenon. Social media was flooded with messages of support and admiration. Videos of her performance racked up millions of views. Special reports tried to uncover more about the little singer from Austin and her inspiring story. In the apartment hotel, Sophia watched it all with a mix of childlike excitement and a maturity far beyond her years. Patricia had organized a small premiere viewing, complete with popcorn and soda, trying to create a moment of normalcy and celebration. Everyone is talking about you, Sophia, Patricia exclaimed, showing her the comments on social media on her phone. You're already a star. Do you think Mommy will like it when she watches? The girl asked, more concerned with Rebecca's opinion than that of thousands of strangers. I'm sure she will. We'll take the video for her to see tomorrow, okay? Meanwhile, in the temporary office he had set up at the hospital, Gregory monitored the reaction closely. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Record label executives, producers, journalists, all wanting to know more about Sophia, all interested in some kind of association with the new child music phenomenon. He refused all approaches, protecting Sophia from excessive exposure and ensuring the focus remained on the show. But internally, he felt an overwhelming pride he had never experienced. His daughter, the daughter he hadn't helped raise, was winning over the country with her talent and purity. The next morning, Sophia and Patricia visited Rebecca, bringing a tablet to show her the show's reception. Rebecca watched her daughter's performance with tears in her eyes, amazed by the talent and strength emanating from that small figure on the stage. You were amazing, my love. I'm so proud of you. Sophia hugged her mother carefully, happy to see her looking more rested, with a bit more color in her cheeks. Dr. Cavendish said you're responding well to the initial treatment, the girl commented, repeating what she had heard from the nurse earlier. What does that mean? Rebecca smiled, stroking her daughter's curls. It means we're on the right track. But we still have a long way to go. Patricia left mother and daughter alone to talk, and that's when Rebecca decided to broach the subject that had kept her awake for much of the night. Sophia, remember when you asked me about your father? About why he left? The girl nodded, suddenly serious. You said he needed to follow a different path, that he wasn't ready to be a dad. Yes, and that was true. But there's more you need to know. With simple, careful words, Rebecca told Sophia about how she met Gregory Nash when he was just a music producer at the beginning of his career. Ambitious and focused solely on his professional success, she told her about their brief relationship, the unexpected pregnancy, and his decision to walk away. So, Mr. Nash is my dad? Sophia finally asked, trying to process the information. Yes, and he knows I'm his daughter. He found out recently. After your audition. That's why he's been helping us so much. Sophia was silent for several minutes, her young face cycling through a range of complex emotions: confusion, sadness, anger, curiosity. Finally, she asked the question that weighed most heavily on her heart. Is he going to take me away from you? Rebecca's heart ached at the vulnerability and fear in her daughter's voice. No, my love, never. You are my daughter. Nothing will change that. But why is he here now? Why does he care now and didn't care before? People change, Sophia. Sometimes it takes a long time to realize your mistakes and try to fix them. Your father, Gregory, he's trying to do the right thing now. I don't want to talk to him, Sophia declared, crossing her arms in a rare display of stubbornness. He hurt you. He abandoned us. I don't need him. Rebecca sighed, understanding her daughter's reaction, but also worried about the future. I don't have to talk to him now if you don't want to, but one day maybe you'll change your mind. And that's okay if it happens. I don't want you to carry anger in your heart, my love. It only hurts ourselves. When Sophia and Patricia left the hospital that day, they ran into Gregory in the hallway. There was a palpable tension in the air, and it was clear from the look Sophia gave him that Rebecca had told her the truth. "Hi, Sophia," he said, more insecure than he had ever been in front of cameras or the biggest executives in the music industry. "I was thinking, maybe we could have lunch together today. There's a restaurant nearby that serves delicious pasta." Sophia looked at him with a mix of curiosity and defiance. "You left my mom when she was pregnant with me. Why should I have lunch with you?" Patricia gasped, surprised by the child's brutal honesty, but Gregory didn't back down. "You're right. I did something terrible. Something I deeply regret. I don't deserve your forgiveness or your time, but I would very much like a chance to at least explain. Not to justify myself, but so you understand that the mistake was all mine, never your mother's, and certainly not yours." The sincerity in his words seemed to reach Sophia. She looked at Patricia, who nodded encouragingly. "Fine, but only because I'm hungry. And you're paying." Gregory couldn't suppress a small smile. That direct, slightly insolent attitude was so much like his own way of being that it was almost like looking in a mirror from the past. Lunch was initially tense and quiet. Sophia ate her pasta methodically, casting appraising glances at Gregory from time to time. He tried to start conversations, asking about school, about music, about things she liked to do. "Why did you leave the guitar for me if you didn't want to know me?" Sophia asked suddenly, interrupting Gregory's attempt to talk about cartoons. The question took him by surprise. I didn't leave it consciously. When I left your mother's apartment, I left a lot of things behind. The guitar was one of them. Was it important to you?" "Very. It was the first instrument I bought with my own money. I learned to play on it. Wrote my first songs." Sophia absorbed the information, poking at her pasta with her fork. "It broke on the day of the audition. I tried to adjust a string and it cracked in half." Gregory felt a pang of sadness. "I'm sorry about that. That guitar had history." "Like us," Sophia said with a wisdom that left him speechless. "Broken." He didn't know what to say to that. There was a painful truth in the girl's observation, a truth that no amount of money or influence could easily fix. "Do you think some things, when they break, can be fixed?" he finally asked. Sophia thought for a moment. "It depends on how it broke, and who's trying to fix it." It was a profound answer, full of possibilities. Gregory felt a flicker of hope. "I would very much like to try and fix what I can, Sophia. I know some cracks will remain. Some parts might never fit perfectly again. But if you and your mother give me a chance, I promise I will do everything in my power to earn a place in your lives." The girl studied him with those brown eyes so much like his own, eyes that seemed to see beyond appearances. "Beyond words, is my mom going to get better?" she asked, abruptly changing the subject, or perhaps getting straight to the point that mattered most. "The doctors are doing everything they can. Dr. Cavendish is the best specialist in the country, and your mother is a very strong woman. But you don't know." "No, Sophia, I don't. The honesty hurt, but it was necessary. No one knows for sure. But we're giving her every possible chance to get better. If she..." Sophia swallowed hard, unable to complete the sentence. "Will you take me to an orphanage?" The question hit Gregory like a physical blow. The idea that Sophia could fear being abandoned again, that she could imagine herself alone in the world, was devastating. "Never," he answered firmly. "Never, Sophia. You are my daughter. If something happens to your mother, which we very much hope doesn't, you will stay with me. I am your father. And even if it takes a while for you to see me that way, I will always be your father. I will never abandon you again." Something in the intensity of his promise seemed to reach Sophia. Her eyes filled with tears. She was bravely trying to hold back. "Can I have dessert?" she asked, her voice slightly trembling. "Of course. Anything you want." I want ice cream, chocolate with caramel sauce, hand nuts, and rainbow sprinkles. Gregory smiled, relieved by the small truce. That sounds like an excellent choice. In the days that followed, a new dynamic began to form. Sophia was still determined to win the show, now more than ever, as she knew the exposure and eventual prize could open many doors for her future. But her motivation had subtly shifted. It was no longer about money for her mother's treatment, but about proving her worth, showing her talent, perhaps even impressing the father she had just met. Gregory, for his part, completely rearranged his schedule to be present in Los Angeles. He delegated responsibilities, cancelled international commitments, and dedicated himself entirely to overseeing Rebecca's treatment and Sophia's rehearsals. Rebecca watched this gradual rapprochement with conflicting feelings. Part of her still held on to the hurts of the past, the scars of abandonment at a vulnerable time in her life. Another part felt relieved that Sophia finally had the chance to know her father, especially given the uncertainty of her own future. The treatment was aggressive and exhausting. There were good days when Rebecca could sit up in bed, talk and even laugh with Sophia during her visits, and there were bad days when all she could do was weakly hold her daughter's hand while fighting nausea and exhaustion. On one particularly difficult afternoon, after a treatment session that had left Rebecca especially weak, Sophia found Gregory in the hospital corridor, sitting alone with his head in his hands. "Are you okay?" she asked, approaching cautiously. He looked up, surprised, quickly trying to hide any sign of vulnerability. "Oh, hi, Sophia. Yes, I'm just a little tired." The girl sat next to him on the bench, swinging her legs that didn't reach the floor. "Were you crying?" "No, I just—" He stopped, realizing there was no point in lying. "Yes, I think I was. Because of my mom?" Gregory nodded. "Because of her, and because of us, of everything I lost, of everything I made you lose." Sophia considered this for a moment. "Did you know that when I'm sad, my mom always says it's good to cry? She says tears clean your eyes so you can see better afterward." A small smile appeared on Gregory's tired face. "Your mother was always very wise." "I thought of something," Sophia continued. "If you really want to fix things, you have to start with the guitar." "The guitar?" "Yes, the one that broke. If you can fix it, maybe other things can be fixed too." There was a childlike logic to her reasoning, but also a symbolic depth that did not escape Gregory. The guitar he had abandoned, just as he had abandoned Rebecca and the daughter he didn't even know existed, now represented a possibility of redemption. "Do you still have the pieces?" Sophia nodded. "Aunt Susan packed everything in a box when we came to LA. It's at our apartment in Austin. I'll go get it, and I'll fix it. I promise." The following week, as Sophia advanced to the semi-finals of the show, charming an ever-growing audience with each performance, Gregory kept his promise. He flew to Austin, met Susan, who received him with justifiable coldness but allowed him into the apartment, and returned with the remains of the old guitar. The instrument was in worse shape than he had imagined. It wasn't just a crack in the neck, as Sophia had said. The top was almost completely separated from the body. The neck was truly broken in two places, and several parts of the wood were chipped or damaged. Any luthier would say it was irreparable, that it would be easier and wiser to buy a new one. But Gregory understood the meaning of this task. It wasn't about recovering an instrument. It was about demonstrating commitment, patience, and the willingness to invest time and effort into something that seemed lost. He hired the best instrument restorer in Los Angeles, an elderly Italian man who worked in a small shop in Pasadena. He explained the history and importance of the guitar and asked him to do the impossible. "It will be expensive, and it will not be like new," the old craftsman warned, examining the pieces with experienced eyes. "There will always be visible scars. And the sound. It may never be the same." "It doesn't have to be like new," Gregory replied. "It just needs to be playable again. And as for the scars, they're part of the story now." The process would take weeks, but the restorer promised to do his best, moved as much by the professional challenge as by the story behind the instrument. Meanwhile, the competition on American Starfinder intensified. Sophia was now among the 8 finalists, and the pressure was mounting. The production wanted more dramatic stories, more elaborate performances, all to keep viewership high. Gregory, using his influence as a judge, protected Sophia as much as he could without showing favoritism. He ensured she had enough time to visit her mother every day, that she wasn't overwhelmed with media commitments, and that her education wasn't completely neglected, even during the show. "Aren't you being a bit too protective of the Addams girl?" one of the executive producers questioned after Gregory vetoed the idea of a special report focusing on Rebecca's illness. "I'm being fair," he replied curtly. "She's 7 years old. She's a child, not a ratings machine." The producer shrugged. "It's a competition. Everyone agreed to the rules when they signed up." "The rules don't include exploiting a child's pain to boost viewership," Gregory retorted, ending the discussion. On the eve of the semi-final, Sophia was especially nervous. The song she had chosen to perform, Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, had a special meaning for her. It spoke of the passage of time, the importance of the people we love, the brevity and beauty of life. During the final rehearsal, however, she seemed distracted and insecure. She missed notes, forgot parts of the lyrics, lost the rhythm. Richard, who was acting as her mentor for that round, began to show his impatience. "Sophia, you need to focus. This could be the performance that determines whether you stay on the show." "What's going on?" The girl looked down, fighting back tears. "I'm sorry. I'll try again." But the second attempt was no better, nor the third. Richard decided to take a break, and it was then that Gregory, who had been watching discreetly from the back of the studio, approached. "Can I talk to her for a few minutes?" Richard agreed, visibly relieved to pass the problem on, and left the two alone. "What's happening, Sophia?" Gregory asked gently. "You've never had trouble with rehearsals before." Sophia looked around to make sure no one else could hear, then whispered, "It's Mom. I heard the doctors talking earlier today, when they thought I wasn't listening. They said she's not responding well to the new medication." Gregory felt a tightness in his chest. He knew the situation, of course. He had spoken with Dr. Cavendish that morning and received the discouraging news. But he had hoped to shield Sophia from this information, at least until after the semi-final. "Sophia, look. Medicine is complicated. Sometimes one treatment doesn't work, so the doctors try another. It doesn't mean your mom isn't going to get better." "You're lying," Sophia accused, with that sharp perception that always surprised him. "Everyone is always lying to protect me, but I know she's very sick. I can see it in her eyes even when she smiles." Gregory took a deep breath, then made a decision. He would not lie to his daughter, not again, not after everything. "You're right. Your mother is facing a difficult time. The treatment is tough, and it doesn't always work as we hope. But that doesn't mean we should give up. The doctors are adjusting their approach. And your mother is strong, very strong." Sophia nodded, processing the confirmation of her fears. "That's why I can't concentrate. How can I sing about time passing and getting older when I'm so scared?" "Maybe that's exactly why you should sing," Gregory suggested. "Maybe this song is precisely about finding beauty and meaning, even when we're afraid. About fully living every moment we have with those we love." The girl considered the idea. "But what if I'm not good enough? What if I get eliminated? All this effort, all this time away from Mum. It would have been for nothing." "Not for nothing, Sophia. Never for nothing. Every performance of yours has already touched millions of people. You are already a winner, regardless of the show's outcome. And as for your mother, she is so proud of you. Seeing you sing, seeing your talent being recognized, that gives her strength. Believe me." Sophia wiped away a stubborn tear. "I just want her to be okay." "Me too," Gregory admitted, feeling his own voice falter. "More than you can imagine." Something in the vulnerability of this normally so controlled and confident man seemed to touch Sophia. For the first time, she saw him not just as the famous judge, or as the absent father who suddenly appeared in her life, but as a person who was also suffering, who was also afraid, who also loved. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll try again. I'll sing for her." The rehearsal resumed, and this time Sophia's voice was firm and clear. There was still a raw emotion in her interpretation, but now it was a directed emotion, channeled through the music, transforming pain into beauty. When she finished, Richard applauded, genuinely impressed. "That was extraordinary, Sophia. What changed?" The girl glanced briefly at Gregory before answering. "I just remembered why I'm singing. That evening after the rehearsal, Gregory took Sophia to visit Rebecca at the hospital. There was a special tension in the air. Everyone knew, even if they didn't speak of it openly, that the situation had worsened. Rebecca was paler and weaker, but her eyes still shone at the sight of her daughter. Sophia ran to hug her, with that special care she had developed, mindful of the tubes and equipment. "How was rehearsal today?" Rebecca asked, stroking her daughter's hair. "It was good. I'm singing Landslide tomorrow." "For you." "I'll be watching," Rebecca promised. Although everyone knew she would be connected to monitors and medications, likely watching on the small TV in her hospital room, Gregory kept his distance, allowing mother and daughter to have their moment. He watched the scene with a mixture of admiration and pain. Admiration for the strength of these two, pain for the lost time, the wrong choices, the fragility of life. When Sophia went to the bathroom, Rebecca gestured for him to come closer. "I need you to promise me something," she said, her voice weaker than ever but still determined. "Anything. If something happens to me, you'll take care of her, truly take care of her, not just give her money or opportunities, but be present. Love her as she deserves to be loved." The gravity of the moment did not escape Gregory. It wasn't just a hypothetical question or a distant concern. It was a real request from a mother facing the concrete possibility of not seeing her daughter grow up. "I promise, Rebecca, with all my heart, I will always be by her side. I will be the father she deserves, the father I should have been from the beginning." Rebecca held his hand, squeezing it with what little strength she had. "She's going to need you. She's strong, stronger than both of us combined, but she's still a child. A child who has already faced too much loss. I won't fail her. Not this time." When Sophia returned, she found them holding hands, a moment of peace and understanding that took her by surprise, but somehow felt right. "What's wrong?" she asked, noticing their emotional expressions. "Nothing, my love," Rebecca smiled. "We were just talking about how special you are." On the day of the semi-final, the studio was packed and the anticipation was palpable. Social media was buzzing with speculation about who the 4 finalists would be to compete for the grand prize of $1 million and the record contract. Sophia was, without a doubt, a fan favorite. Her story, her age, her genuine talent, it all contributed to an irresistible narrative of overcoming adversity and hope. Backstage, she waited for her turn, wearing a light blue dress specially designed for her, with small silver stars that sparkled under the lights. Her hair was styled in defined curls, with a thin rhinestone headband completing the look. "Nervous?" asked Patricia, who had become a constant and comforting presence during those intense weeks. Sophia shook her head. "No, I'm ready." There was an unusual serenity about the girl, as if she had found an inner certainty that transcended the show, the competition, even the difficult circumstances. When her name was announced, Sophia walked to the center of the stage with firm steps. The lights dimmed, creating an intimate atmosphere. There were no elaborate arrangements, dancers or special effects, just a girl, her voice and a story to tell. The opening notes of the introduction began to play, and Sophia closed her eyes for a brief moment, centering herself. When she began to sing, her voice was crystal clear, each word filled with an emotion that went far beyond her years. "I took my love. I took it down. Climbed a mountain and I turned around, and I saw my reflection in the snow-covered hills till the landslide brought me down." At the hospital, Rebecca watched on the television in her room, with Dr. Cavendish and a nurse present to monitor her. Silent tears streamed down her face as she listened to her daughter sing about the value of time, about loving and being loved. In the studio, the audience was in absolute silence, many visibly moved. Carmen could barely contain her tears. Richard shook his head in admiration. And Gregory. Gregory watched his daughter with an indescribable mix of pride, regret, and love. As Sophia sang the final verses, her voice grew in power and emotion, filling the studio with a message that went beyond entertainment and touched something deeply human in everyone present. "Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder. Even children get older, and I'm getting older too." When she finished, there was a moment of reverent silence, as if no one wanted to break the spell created by that performance. Then, like a wave, the ovation began. First a few people, then the entire studio, everyone on their feet applauding, some crying openly. The three judges stood up, clapping enthusiastically. Carmen couldn't speak, overcome with emotion. Richard found words to praise the exceptional technique and interpretation. And Gregory, when his turn came, was simple and direct. "Sophia, you didn't just sing. You reminded us of what really matters in life. Thank you for that." After the performance, while the other contestants performed, Sophia waited backstage without the typical anxiety of someone awaiting a result. She had done her best. She had sung from the heart, and that in her mind was already a victory. That's when Patricia appeared, her face pale, her phone in her hand. "Sophia, we need to go to the hospital now." "You know, child," he said as he worked, "this guitar, it has a special story. Its wood has lived many lives. It was a tree, then a plank, then an instrument. Now, after being broken and repaired, it begins a new life, like all of us." Sophia watched the craftsman's meticulous work with fascination, absorbing every word, every movement. Rebecca, from her hospital bed, contemplated the scene with a serenity that contrasted with the gravity of her condition. "There," the luthier finally announced. "Now it's perfect. Or rather, it's not perfect, it's authentic, with all its stories and scars." "Thank you," Sophia said, taking the instrument back. "Can I play a song for you? And for my mom?" "It would be an honor," the old man smiled. Sophia positioned herself at the foot of Rebecca's bed, adjusted the small guitar in her arms, and began to gently strum the strings. It was a simple melody, almost a lullaby. There were no lyrics, just notes that flowed like a quiet river, carrying emotions that words couldn't express. Rebecca closed her eyes, letting herself be enveloped by her daughter's music. The luthier tilted his head, appreciating not just the still-developing technique, but especially the purity of expression. Gregory, watching from the doorway, felt a lump in his throat. There was something transcendent in that moment, something that connected past, present, and future through music. When Sophia finished playing, the room remained silent for a few moments, as if no one wanted to break the spell. "Does that song have a name?" the luthier finally asked. Sophia shook her head. "I just made it up. For my mom." "Then it should be called Rebecca's Song," the old craftsman suggested. "It's a beautiful composition, child. You have the gift not only of interpreting, but of creating." After the luthier left, Sophia stayed by her mother's side, practicing softly, experimenting with variations of the melody she had created, perfecting each note. Rebecca drifted between sleep and wakefulness, but always with a small smile on her lips when the music played. Gregory, watching the scene, felt a mixture of pride and deep pain. There was so much he had lost, years he would never get back. First words, first steps, first musical notes. And now, when he had finally found his daughter, they were facing the imminent loss of Rebecca together. On the day of the grand finale, Sophia woke up at the hospital next to her mother, as she had done all week. Rebecca was weaker but lucid and determined to see her daughter shine. "Today is your day, my love," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "You're going to get on that stage and show the whole country the special talent God gave you." Sophia held her mother's hand tightly. "I'm scared, Mom. What if I forget the words? What if I miss the notes?" "You won't forget, you won't miss. But even if you did, it wouldn't matter. What matters is what you feel when you sing, what you make others feel. And in that, my daughter, you are already a champion." The makeup artist and stylist came to the hospital to prepare Sophia, turning the room into a small makeshift dressing room. Rebecca participated with weak but precise suggestions about the hairstyle, about the small details of the light blue dress Sophia would wear, now complemented with appliques resembling the restored scars of the guitar, an idea from the stylist herself when she heard the instrument's story. "You look beautiful," Rebecca whispered when the transformation was complete. A true star. It was time to leave for the studio. Sophia hesitated, reluctant to leave her mother. "I'll be back right after the performance," she promised, hugging Rebecca carefully. "I won't even wait for the result." "Yes, you will," Rebecca insisted. "You'll stay until the end. You'll receive your prize with your head held high. And then you'll tell me everything, down to the last detail." Rebecca's conviction that Sophia would be the winner was unshakable, as if she could, through the force of her faith, shape reality. "I love you, Mom," Sophia said, the simple words carrying the weight of everything that couldn't be said. "I love you more, my star," Rebecca replied. "Now go. America is waiting for you." The Microsoft Theater, where the finale would be held, was packed. More than 10,000 people had come to watch live, and millions more would be watching on television. The 4 finalists had diverse profiles: a 19-year-old man with a powerful voice and magnetic stage presence, a 23-year-old woman with impeccable vocal technique, a 67-year-old man who had revived his dream of singing after retirement, and Sophia, the youngest, the sensation, the girl who sang with her soul. Backstage, the tension was palpable. The other finalists did vocal warm-ups, talked with their coaches, tried to control their nerves. Sophia, in contrast, was strangely calm, sitting in a corner with the restored guitar on her lap, occasionally strumming a few notes of the melody she had created for her mother. "Are you okay?" Patricia asked, concerned by the girl's quietness. Sophia nodded. "I am. Just thinking about Mommy. I wish she could be here." "She is, in a way," said Gregory, approaching. "She's watching from the hospital. And she's here," he pointed to Sophia's heart, "in every note you sing." A production assistant appeared to inform them that Sophia would be the third to perform. There would first be a joint performance by the 4 finalists, then the individual performances, and finally the announcement of the winner. "Remember," Gregory said, kneeling to be at Sophia's level, "it doesn't matter what the result is. What you've already achieved, the public's affection, the respect of professionals, your growth as an artist, no one can take that away from you." Sophia faced him with those eyes that were so much like his, determined, deep, slightly defiant. "But I want to win. For her. I know. And you have everything it takes." The joint performance was a success, with the 4 finalists interpreting a medley of American classics. Sophia, the smallest among them, stood out not for the volume of her voice, but for her emotional interpretation and genuine connection to every word she sang. Then came the individual performances. The 19-year-old impressed with a high-energy rock anthem. The 23-year-old presented a technically perfect version of a complex romantic ballad. The 67-year-old moved the audience with a classic soul song about new beginnings. Then it was Sophia's turn. The stage was set minimally, just a simple stool in the center, a microphone, and soft lighting that created an intimate atmosphere, almost as if we were all in a living room, watching a girl share her music. Sophia sat down, adjusted the guitar on her lap, and looked out at the audience. For a moment she seemed small and vulnerable before the crowd. Then her eyes found Gregory in the front row, and he nodded encouragingly. "This song," Sophia said into the microphone, her voice clear and steady, "is for my mom, who couldn't be here today. And for all the mothers and fathers who, even when life is hard, never stop believing in their children's dreams." Her fingers began to gently strum the strings of the restored guitar, producing the same melody she had played in the hospital, Rebecca's song. But this time there were lyrics, simple and profound words about love, hope, and the eternity of special shared moments. Sophia's voice, crystalline and filled with genuine emotion, filled the theater. It wasn't a performance. It was a testimony, a declaration of love, a thank you. Every note, every word, seemed to carry not just the girl's natural talent, but the entire story that had brought her there, the hardships, the discoveries, the losses, and the reunions. At the hospital, Rebecca watched on television, silent tears streaming down her face. Beside her, Dr. Cavendish and 2 nurses also seemed moved, touched by the purity of that artistic expression. In the theater, the audience was in absolute silence, many crying openly. The other finalists, watching from the wings, exchanged looks that blended admiration with the understanding that they were witnessing something exceptional. When Sophia finished singing, there was a moment of reverent silence, as if no one wanted to break the spell. Then, like a wave, the entire audience rose in a deafening ovation. Thousands of people on their feet applauding, shouting, crying. Carmen, with tears in her eyes, approached her microphone. "Sophia, I have no words. You didn't just sing. You shared your soul with us today. And for that, we are all grateful." Richard, normally technical and analytical, was visibly moved. "In all the years of this show, I have never seen such a pure connection between an artist, music, and the audience. You transcended the competition today, Sophia. You became something more. Gregory, struggling to maintain his professional composure, simply said, "Thank you for reminding us why music exists. Why art matters. Why even in the most difficult moments it's worth opening your heart." After all the performances, while the public's votes were being tallied, Sophia waited backstage, strangely serene. There wasn't the typical anxiety of a competitor. There was only the satisfaction of having sung with truth, of having honored her mother in the best way she could. That's when her phone rang. It was Patricia, who had stayed at the hospital with Rebecca. "Sophia," her voice was tense, urgent, "you need to come back, now." The world seemed to slow down again. Sophia looked at the stage where the hosts were preparing to announce the grand winner, then at Gregory, who was approaching, having noticed her alarmed expression. "Mommy," she asked into the phone, her voice small, "she's asking for you. Dr. Cavendish says it's important that you come quickly." Gregory, understanding the situation immediately, made a decision. "We're going now. The show doesn't matter." "But the result," Sophia began, torn between her concern for her mother and the promise she had made to stay until the end. "It doesn't matter," Gregory repeated firmly. "Your mother is more important than any prize." Within minutes they were in the car, driving as fast as possible toward the hospital. Gregory had briefly informed the production, who promised to understand the situation and adapt. Sophia held the guitar tightly, as if the restored instrument could somehow protect her from what was to come. At the hospital, they found Rebecca conscious, but visibly weaker than she had been hours before. Her eyes, however, lit up when she saw Sophia still in her performance dress, still with her stage makeup, still holding the guitar. "You came," she whispered, extending a trembling hand. "Of course I came." "Mom," Sophia approached, holding Rebecca's hand carefully. "I'll always come when you call." "Your performance. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life." Rebecca's voice was weak but full of emotion. "You shone like the star I always knew you would be." "We didn't even wait for the result," Sophia explained. "We came straight here when Patricia called." A small smile appeared on Rebecca's tired face. "You didn't need to wait." "I already know the result." "You do?" "Of course, you won." It couldn't have been any other way. Rebecca's conviction was so strong, so unshakable, that for a moment Sophia almost believed her mother really knew the result before everyone else. But then she understood. To Rebecca, Sophia was already a winner, regardless of what the judges or the public decided. "I have something important to tell you," Rebecca continued, making a visible effort to speak. "Something I need you to hear and keep in your heart." Sophia leaned closer, attentive to every word. "You, my daughter, are the greatest blessing of my life. Every day with you has been a gift. Every song, every laugh, every moment together was perfect." Tears began to roll down Sophia's face, but she didn't interrupt her mother. "I know it's been hard, that you've taken on too many responsibilities for a child, that you had to be strong when you should have just been playing and dreaming. And for that, please forgive me." "I have nothing to forgive, Mom. I love you. I love you too, my treasure, more than words can express." Rebecca paused, breathing with difficulty. "And I want you to know that no matter what happens, I will always be with you. Not in the way you imagine now, but in a different way. In the songs you sing, in the colors of the sky, in the small joys of everyday life." Sophia was sobbing now, understanding what her mother was saying, even as her child's heart wanted to deny it. "Promise me you'll keep singing, that you'll keep dreaming, that you'll allow yourself to be happy." "I promise, Mommy," Sophia whispered through her tears. Rebecca then looked at Gregory, who remained silently beside Sophia, equally moved. "Gregory," she called softly. He approached, taking Rebecca's other hand. "I'm here. Take care of our star. Be the father she deserves. The father I know you can be. I promise, Rebecca, with all my life." A serene smile lit up Rebecca's face. "Now, Sophia, could you sing for me? The same song from today, the one you wrote?" Sophia nodded, wiping her tears. She positioned the guitar, and with trembling fingers, began to play Rebecca's song. Her voice, though broken by emotion, still carried that special purity, that direct connection to the heart. As she sang, Sophia watched her mother's face, the deepening serenity, the eyes slowly closing, the small smile that remained on her lips. It was as if the music was lulling her into a peaceful sleep. a well-deserved rest after a long and courageous battle. When the song ended, the room was silent, except for the soft beeping of the monitors. Dr. Cavendish approached, checked Rebecca's vital signs and gently turned off the machines that were no longer needed. She passed peacefully, he said softly. Lulled by your music, Sophia. There could be no more beautiful farewell. Sophia set the guitar aside and hugged her mother one last time, whispering promises and declarations of love. Gregory stood by his daughter's side, offering a silent presence, respecting the intimacy of that final moment. Hours later, as Sophia finally slept, exhausted from the emotional turmoil, Gregory received the call he was expecting from the show's production. She won, Richard informed him, his voice choked with emotion. It was a landslide victory, the most decisive in the show's history. The entire country voted for her. Thank you for letting me know, Gregory replied, but I'm going to need some time before I tell her. Today we lost Rebecca. There was a moment of respectful silence on the other end of the line. I'm so sorry, truly. We'll handle everything as sensitively as possible. The prize, the contract, everything will wait as long as necessary. In the weeks that followed, Sophia faced her grief with the same quiet strength she had faced all previous challenges. Gregory remained by her side, respecting her space, offering support without pressure, learning day by day how to be a father. Susan and Mrs. Josephine came from Austin for Rebecca's funeral and stayed for a few days with Sophia, bringing the comfort of familiar faces and happy memories. The girl listened to the stories about her mother with absolute attention, as if each anecdote, each memory, were a precious treasure to be guarded. The announcement of her victory on the show was made discreetly, respecting the delicate moment. Gregory ensured the prize money was properly managed to secure Sophia's educational and artistic future, and that the record contract respected the time and emotional space the young artist needed. A month after Rebecca's passing, on a sunny afternoon, Sophia finally felt ready to sing again. Sitting in the garden of the apartment she now shared with Gregory, a large, airy space in a quiet LA neighborhood, decorated with photos of Rebecca and mementos from Austin, she picked up the restored guitar and began to strum softly. Gregory, working in his makeshift office, heard the music and approached silently, not wanting to interrupt the moment. It was a new composition, he realized, a melody that blended notes from Rebecca's song with new, fresh, hopeful elements. It was as if Sophia were telling a new story through music, a story that honored the past but also looked forward. It's beautiful, he said when she finished. Does it have a name? Sophia smiled, a small, still shy but genuine smile. I'm thinking of calling it New Beginning. Perfect, Gregory sat next to her on the garden bench. You know, I was thinking, when you feel ready, we could organize a small concert. Nothing big or commercial. Something intimate for friends, for people who really care about the music. The idea seemed to spark Sophia's interest. Could we do it at the community school in Austin? The one where Mom always wanted me to perform? Of course, that would be perfect. And we could create music scholarships for kids who can't afford lessons. In Mom's name. Gregory's heart swelled with pride. Even after so much pain, Sophia's first concern was to help others, to create opportunities to spread the music that had saved her own life. We'll do it, he promised. The Rebecca Adams Music Foundation, so that other stars can shine like you. Sophia played a few experimental notes on the guitar, then looked up at the blue Los Angeles sky, where a few white clouds drew whimsical shapes. She's watching us now, isn't she? She asked, her voice soft. I'm sure she is, Gregory replied. And she's very proud of the incredible daughter she raised. Sophia nodded, finding comfort in that certainty. Then, with renewed determination, she returned to strumming the guitar, developing her new song, her personal declaration that life, with all its pain and scars, goes on and can, like the restored guitar, produce even more beautiful sounds after being broken and carefully put back together. And so, between notes and silences, between memories and possibilities, Sophia Adams built her path to the future, a small but brilliant star, illuminating not only her own destiny, but also the lives of all who had the privilege to cross her path and hear her music. Sophia Adams was now 10 years old, and though still small for her age, she possessed a presence that transcended her physical size. Her curly hair, now longer, still danced in the wind with the same freedom, but her eyes held a wisdom that only profound experiences can bestow. The apartment in Los Angeles had transformed into a true home. The walls, once neutral and impersonal, now told stories through carefully framed photographs. Rebecca smiling on a beach, a baby Sophia in her mother's arms, precious moments preserved in paper and memory. A discreet shrine occupied a corner of the living room, with a special photograph of Rebecca, always adorned with fresh flowers and an occasional candle, a space of remembrance and connection that Sophia maintained with devotion. The routine Sophia and Gregory had built together was a delicate dance of mutual adaptation. He, accustomed to solitude and the intense rhythm of the music industry, had learned to slow down, to cherish small moments, to find meaning in Sunday afternoons making popcorn for a movie marathon. She, forced to grow up so quickly, now allowed herself moments of pure childhood, running through the park, collecting stickers, having fits of laughter over silly jokes. The Rebecca Adams Music Foundation had become a reality, bigger and more impactful than either of them could have imagined. What had started as a small project in Austin now benefited hundreds of children across Southern California, offering free music education, instruments, and, above all, the chance to transform lives through art. Sophia was the beating heart of the foundation. Although Gregory handled the structure and logistics, it was his daughter's sensitivity and vision that guided every decision. Once a month, she visited the different partner schools, talked with the students, shared her own story, and sometimes, when the moment called for it, sang with them. Sophia's music career had taken a different path than many expected after her victory on American Starfinder. Instead of grand shows and national tours, she opted for intimate performances, collaborative projects with other musicians, and primarily compositions that navigated between the childlike and the universal, capable of touching people of all ages. Her first album, Beautiful Scars, released the previous year, had been received with critical acclaim, with reviewers highlighting the surprising maturity of such a young artist. The 10 tracks, all written or co-written by Sophia, told stories of loss, new beginnings, and the beauty that can blossom even in the most unlikely places. "Are you sure you're not nervous?" Gregory asked, adjusting his own shirt collar as he watched Sophia finish getting ready in the makeshift dressing room. They were backstage at the Austin City Limits Live at the Moody Theatre, where in less than an hour, the special anniversary concert for the Rebecca Adams Foundation would take place. It was the first time Sophia would perform in her hometown since moving to Los Angeles. "A little," she admitted, gently strumming her guitar, not the restored one, which now occupied a place of honor in a glass case in their living room, but a new one, a birthday gift from Gregory, with mother-of-pearl inlays forming small stars on the soundboard. "But it's a good kind of nervous. It's a complete sellout," he commented, trying to sound casual but unable to hide the pride in his voice. "And more importantly, all the kids from the foundation will be in the front row." Sophia smiled, thinking of the dozens of faces she had come to know over the past few years, children who, like her, found in music a refuge, a purpose, her form of expression when words seemed insufficient. A soft knock on the door interrupted the moment. It was Susan, elegant in a navy blue dress, her hair now showing a few silver strands she made no effort to hide. "May I come in?" she asked, though she was already halfway into the room. "Aunt Susan!" Sophia exclaimed, running to hug the woman who had been a safe harbor in the most tempestuous moments of her life. Susan hugged her tightly, then held her at arm's length to get a better look. "Just look at you. More like your mother every day." It was true. As she grew, Sophia revealed increasingly evident traces of Rebecca, the shape of her face, her smile, certain gestures and expressions that seemed to have been passed down not just through DNA, but through years of loving observation. "I brought you a surprise," Susan said, handing her a small package wrapped in colorful tissue paper. Sophia opened it carefully. Inside was a delicate silver brooch in the shape of a musical note, with a small blue stone embedded in it. "It was your mother's," Susan explained. "She wore it at her very first musical performance, when we were teenagers in the school choir. I've kept it all these years, waiting for the right moment to pass it on to you." Sophia carefully pinned the brooch to the white dress she would wear for the concert, feeling an almost physical connection to Rebecca through the small object. "Thank you. Aunt Susan, it's perfect." Another knock on the door, and this time it was Patricia, now the communications director for the Rebecca Adams Foundation, a position she had taken after leaving the TV show's production. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here who insisted on seeing you before the show," she said with a mysterious smile. "He said you two have some unfinished business." Sophia looked questioningly at Gregory, who seemed equally surprised. "Who?" Patricia opened the door wider, and an elderly man entered carrying a small leather case. The Italian luthier, Signor Vittorio, now with slower steps and even whiter hair, but with the same kind and lively eyes. "Signor Vittorio," Sophia exclaimed, immediately remembering the craftsman who had restored her father's guitar years ago. "Buonasera, little maestro," the old man smiled. "Or maybe not so little anymore, eh? Time passes, children grow, the music continues. What are you doing here?" Sophia asked, genuinely surprised. She hadn't seen the luthier in at least 2 years, since he had retired and, as she had heard, returned to his hometown in Italy. "Your father invited me," Vittorio explained, casting a knowing glance at Gregory. "He said it was a special occasion. And also—" He opened the case with deliberately slow movements, creating a little suspense. "I needed to personally deliver my anniversary gift to the foundation." From inside the case, he removed an object wrapped in black velvet cloth. As he unwrapped it with reverent care, he revealed a small violin, but not an ordinary instrument. It was a piece of evident antiquity, the wood displaying the golden sheen that only decades of music and care can bestow. "This violin belonged to my nonna," the craftsman explained. "She brought it from Italy when she immigrated to America almost 80 years ago. It was the first instrument I learned to restore when I was still an apprentice. I always thought I would pass it on to a grandchild, but God did not grant me that blessing. Now I want it to go to your foundation, into the hands of some child who, like you, has music in their soul." Sophia touched the instrument with reverence, feeling the weight of its history, of all the melodies it had ever produced, of all the emotions it had expressed. "Signor Vittorio, this is—" "I'm speechless." "It is only wood and strings," the old craftsman smiled, "until someone with love turns it into music, like you did with that broken guitar." The mention of the restored guitar brought a wave of memories, the day of the audition, the instrument breaking, the discovery of Gregory as her father, the final moments with Rebecca. It was incredible how a simple object could carry so many stories, so many transformations. "I'll make sure it gets into the right hands," Sophia promised. "Someone who will honor its history and create new stories through it." Shortly after, everyone left the dressing room so Sophia could have a few minutes of concentration before the show. Alone, she closed her eyes, in a sort of personal ritual she had developed before each performance. "I'm here, Mom," she whispered, touching the musical note brooch. "Singing like I promised, living like you taught me. I hope that wherever you are, you can hear." The Moody Theatre was completely packed. In the front row, as promised, were the children from the foundation, their eyes shining with admiration and expectation. Mrs. Josephine, now in a wheelchair but with the same indomitable spirit, occupied a special seat next to Susan. City officials, local artists, journalists, fans, everyone had come to honor not just Sophia, the little national star, but primarily the transformative work of the Rebecca Adams Foundation. The lights dimmed, and an expectant silence fell over the theater. Gregory walked onto the stage first, visibly emotional. "Good evening, everyone. 3 years ago, when Sophia and I first dreamed of this foundation, we never imagined we would be here today, celebrating over 500 children served, 3 music schools established, and so many lives transformed. This was only possible because one extraordinary woman, Rebecca Adams, taught her daughter to believe in the transformative power of music, even in the most difficult times. And it is in her honor that I present to you, with great pride and love, Sophia Adams." The applause was deafening as Sophia entered the stage, simple and elegant in her white dress, the musical note brooch sparkling discreetly, her guitar in hand. She gave a small bow, then sat on the stool positioned in the center of the stage. "Good evening." "Faustin," she said into the microphone, her voice more mature but still carrying that crystalline quality that had made her famous. "It's very special to be back in the city where I was born, where my mother dreamed, where everything began. She gently strummed a few introductory notes before continuing. I'm going to start with the first song I ever wrote, Rebecca's song. For those who don't know the story, I sang it for my mother in her final moments. For a long time it was hard to sing it again, but then I realized that every time I sing it, somehow my mother is present, not just in my memory, but in the air, in the notes, in the emotion we share. The first lines of the song filled the theater, transporting the audience to that intimate and transformative moment. There wasn't a dry eye in the house when Sophia finished the song with a soft final chord. The concert continued with songs from the album Beautiful Scars, interspersed with some new, unrecorded compositions. At one point, the children's choir from the foundation came on stage for a joint performance, a specially arranged version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the song Sophia had sung in the show's semi-final. It was a powerful sight, the girl who used to sing on the streets to help her sick mother, now surrounded by dozens of children who found in music the same refuge and hope she had. For the final number, Sophia made a surprise announcement. I'd like to call to the stage someone very special to me, someone who taught me that some breaks can be the beginning of something new and even more beautiful. My father, Gregory Nash. Gregory, visibly surprised, walked onto the stage to applause. Sophia handed him a guitar, not just any guitar, but the original restored one, which she had brought especially for this occasion. This song is new, Sophia explained to the audience. It's called Three Tenses, and it's about how our lives are made of past, present, and future, all coexisting in every choice we make. I wrote it thinking of my mother, who is my past and remains present in everything I am, of my father, who is my present and a reminder that it's never too late to rebuild, and of all the children in the foundation, who are the future we dream of together. Father and daughter began to play, their guitars in perfect harmony, creating a musical dance that spoke of loss, reunion, and hope. Sophia's voice, more mature and controlled than ever, told the story of a broken and restored guitar, of a family separated and reunited, of pain transformed into purpose. When the music ended, the entire theater rose in an ovation that seemed endless. Sophia and Gregory hugged, both with tears in their eyes, aware of the extraordinary journey that had brought them there. Backstage after the concert, while receiving congratulations from officials, fans, and friends, Sophia was approached by a little girl of about 6, one of the foundation's newest students. Sophia, the little girl said shyly, when I grow up, I want to be like you. Sophia knelt to be at the girl's eye level. You want to be a singer? No, the child replied seriously. I want to make music that helps people not be sad when bad things happen. The simplicity and depth of that answer struck Sophia like a revelation. That was exactly what she had done without realizing it, created music that didn't eliminate pain, but helped transform it into something meaningful, into a bridge to healing. Later that night, after all the guests had left, Sophia, Gregory, Susan, Mrs. Josephine, and Patricia gathered for a small private celebration in Rebecca's old apartment at the complex, kept intact as a sort of memorial and occasionally used for the foundation's community classes. Sitting in the simple living room, amidst memories and achievements, they toasted with grape juice in makeshift glasses. To Rebecca, Gregory proposed. Who taught us that true love never ends, it just transforms? To Sophia, Susan added. Who transformed loss into purpose, pain into beauty? To music, Sophia completed, looking around at those beloved faces, at the walls that had witnessed so many struggles and dreams, which connects us across time, across distances, and even beyond life. Later, when everyone else had retired, Sophia remained on the small apartment balcony, gazing at the stars dotting the Austin sky. The same sky she had looked at years ago, dreaming of a miracle for her mother, now seemed to tell a different story, not of endings, but of continuations, not of definitive absences, but of presences that take new forms. She took out the small notebook she always carried with her and began to write the first lines of a new song. She didn't know exactly what it would be, just followed the flow of emotions bubbling up after such a significant day. The stars are windows, she wrote, through which the ones we love watch over us, each sparkle a smile, each twinkle a memory. From inside the apartment, the soft sound of Gregory's guitar began to play, an improvised melody, melancholic and hopeful at the same time. Sophia smiled, recognizing the musical pattern. It was something she herself often played when she was thoughtful. Father and daughter, separated by a wall but connected by music, were unknowingly creating a new composition, he with the notes, she with the words, an invisible dance of shared creation that perfectly symbolized the journey they had traveled, from silence to harmony, from distance to connection, from loss to reconstruction. The next morning, Sophia woke up early and went out alone, walking the familiar Austin streets until she reached the Barton Springs Bakery in the South Congress neighborhood, the same place where, years ago, she would climb onto a wooden crate to sing and raise money for her mother's treatment. The bakery had changed little. The same aroma of fresh bread, the same buzz of morning customers seeking coffee and quick conversations before work. Some people recognized her, nodding discreetly or whispering to their companions. Sophia smiled in return but didn't stop. She kept walking until she found exactly what she was looking for, the corner where she used to perform. The wooden crate was gone, of course, but the space was still there, laden with memories and meaning. Without any planning, without a gathered audience, Sophia simply began to sing. Not her famous songs, not elaborate compositions, but the same simple songs she used to sing back then, Joni Mitchell, Carole King, melodies that spoke of hope in difficult times. Gradually, people stopped to listen. Some immediately recognized the famous Sophia Adams, singing informally on the street. Others, newcomers to the city or tourists, simply appreciated the crystal-clear voice that filled the morning with unexpected beauty. An elderly man approached, leaning on a cane, and stood watching with a nostalgic smile. When Sophia finished a song, he applauded enthusiastically. "I remember you, girl," he said. "Years ago, singing right here, with a guitar almost bigger than you. I always threw in a few coins, though I didn't have much to give. Your voice, it brought peace to my difficult days." Sophia felt a wave of emotion. "You really remember? From so long ago?" "Some voices you don't forget," he replied simply. "I knew you'd be big one day, and look, I was right. But I admit I didn't expect to see you back on this corner." "I had to come back," Sophia explained. "To remember where I came from. To say thank you." The man nodded, understanding beyond words. From his pocket he took out a coin, not just any coin, but an old one from another time. "To keep up the tradition," he smiled, holding it out to Sophia. She accepted the coin with reverence, recognizing the gesture not as charity, but as a symbol of a connection that transcended time, of a cycle coming full circle. When Sophia returned to the apartment, she found everyone awake and worried about her absence. She showed the coin to Gregory, explaining the significance of her return to the corner where it all began. "What are you going to do with it?" he asked. Sophia smiled, already knowing the answer. "I'm going to keep it at the foundation, along with Signor Vittorio's violin, to always remember that great transformations begin with small gestures. A coin, a song, a restored instrument, a heart that allows itself to begin again." That afternoon, before returning to Los Angeles, the whole family visited the cemetery where Rebecca was buried. Sophia had brought a bouquet of daisies, her mother's favorites, and a small music box that played the first bars of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. 3 years, Mom," she said softly, arranging the flowers. "It feels like an eternity and an instant at the same time. So many things have happened, so many lives transformed by your story, by your love." Gregory stood a few steps back, giving Sophia the space she needed for that intimate moment. He watched his daughter with a mix of admiration and gratitude. Admiration for the strength and sensitivity she showed in every action. Gratitude for having the chance to be part of her life, even if belatedly. "You know, Mom," Sophia continued, "sometimes I think about how different everything could have been. If the guitar hadn't broken that day, if we hadn't entered the show, if I hadn't met Gregory." She paused, reflecting. "But then I realized that every break, every pain, every meeting and farewell, it's all part of a bigger song. A composition we don't always understand while we're living it, but which, in the end, reveals its own harmony." She placed the small music box near the headstone and wound it up, allowing the notes of Somewhere Over the Rainbow to float softly in the afternoon air. "I promised I would keep singing, and I have. I promised I would find happiness, and I am finding it. Not the perfect, constant happiness of fairy tales, but real happiness, which coexists with longing, which finds beauty even on grey days. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the nearby trees, creating a murmur that seemed to answer Sophia's words. "I love you, Mum, always, in every song. In every child we help. Every time I look at the sky and remember your smile." When Sophia finally stepped away, Gregory approached and placed a hand on her shoulder. There was no need for words. They both knew they carried Rebecca in different but equally significant ways. She as a lived memory of unconditional love. He as a memory of regret, transformed into renewed commitment. Back in Los Angeles, life resumed its rhythm. Sophia balanced her studies, music, and work at the foundation. Gregory had drastically reduced his professional commitments to be more present in his daughter's life, delegating responsibilities and prioritizing what truly mattered. One evening, a few weeks after the concert in Austin, Sophia found a letter in the mailbox addressed to her. There was no return address, just her name written in a shaky but determined hand. Inside the envelope, she found a yellowed newspaper clipping. It was a small note about amateur musical performances at a university festival from almost 13 years ago. Among the participants, the name Rebecca Adams was highlighted, described as a promising vocalist with a unique timbre and emotional interpretation. Along with the clipping was a simple note. "I found this among my old things. Thought you'd like to have it. Your mother had the same sparkle in her eyes that you have when you sing. Someone who never forgot her voice." Sophia showed the clipping and the note to Gregory, who was visibly moved. "She really was special," he said, his voice thick with memory. "Long before you, long before the illness, long before everything. She already had that light. How could you leave her?" Sophia asked softly, without accusation, just genuine curiosity. It was a question she had never asked directly, a wound they had carefully skirted during those years of rebuilding. Gregory took a deep breath, recognizing it was time to face that truth completely. "Fear," he admitted finally. "Fear of not being enough, of failing as a father, of compromising my career, fear of loving as deeply as I knew I would love you both, if I allowed myself. And selfishness. I was so focused on my own path that I couldn't see the treasure I was leaving behind." Sophia nodded, absorbing his words with an understanding beyond her years. "Thank you for coming back," she said simply, "for trying to fix what was broken." "The credit isn't mine," Gregory replied, looking at the newspaper clipping of a young, dream-filled Rebecca. "She was the one who planted in you this capacity to forgive, to rebuild, to turn pain into art. I was just lucky enough to find my way back home." That night, as the city slept, Sophia stayed awake, composing. The words and melodies flowed like a river, finally finding its natural course after navigating obstacles, rocks and detours. The song born from that inspired dawn would later be considered her early masterpiece. Titled "The Voice That Found Me," it spoke of how sometimes we need to hear our own voice echoing in unexpected places to remember who we truly are and where we come from. In the chorus, written with a simplicity that touched the universal, Sophia synthesized her entire journey. It's not about forgetting the storm. It's about dancing even when it rains. It's not about pretending there's no night. It's about finding stars where no one sees. The song, which Sophia would perform for the first time at a charity festival the following year, would eventually become an anthem for thousands of people facing their own battles, a reminder that true strength lies not in avoiding falls, but in learning to get up. Not in hiding scars, but in transforming them into marks of a story of survival. And so, the girl who sang on a forgotten corner in Austin continued her journey, now as a young artist, beginning to understand that her voice was more than a musical instrument. It was a vehicle to connect stories, heal wounds, and build bridges between the past and the future. With every song, every performance, every new child welcomed into the foundation, Sophia Adams honored the promise made to her mother years ago, not just to keep singing, but to transform her music into a beacon for others who, like her once, needed to believe that even on the darkest nights, the stars continue to shine, even if temporarily hidden by the clouds. And somewhere beyond the reach of eyes, but not of the heart, Rebecca smiled, watching her little star illuminate the world, one musical note at a time. Dear viewer, we hope this journey through the life of Sophia Adams has touched your heart and shown how music can transform even the most challenging circumstances. If this story resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications and share in the comments which city you're watching from. We have many more emotional stories waiting to be told, stories that, like Sophia's melody, can bring comfort, inspiration and hope to your days. Until next time, when we will once again connect through the power of narratives that make us feel, reflect and believe in the beauty of life, even in its most difficult moments.